Microsoft has shared a bunch of new data about Xbox, and now we know what's happening with Call of Duty. It is that time of the year, my friends, where Microsoft is legally obligated to share a bunch of details about their performance. And today is the day where they drop data about their Q4 performance on the calendar year, Q2 on the fiscal year, or what we typically call it, the holiday shopping season. And Microsoft hit it out of the park. The high level number that everyone needs to be aware of is that Microsoft had net income, and this is money that goes into their bank that is not being spent on anything else, of $18.8 billion. A lot of repeating numbers. And to put that into some layman terms here, that is 28% of Activision, that acquisition. And it's also about 2 Bethesdas. So yeah, Microsoft made just a bunch of money. I mean, that's a whole bunch of mini fridge units. It's a lot of dollar dues. And so there's a lot of information that Microsoft shared during their earnings call and everything else. And so let's just dive into some of the numbers about how Xbox performed during the pivotal and crucial holiday shopping season. So for that quarter, gaming revenue was up $411 million, or up about 8%. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this is the first quarter where it's year-over-year performance being compared to the current gen, I almost said last gen, to current gen hardware, meaning Series S and X. So they saw an 8% increase over the launch quarter, which is a pretty healthy climb. Now, for the entire quarter for all of Xbox, they generated about $5.4 billion as an org, as a gaming unit, $5.4 billion. And of that, it's about $3.7 billion of that was hardware, meaning the rest was made up of software and services, which is what Microsoft time and time again says, judge us on that. But either way you look at it, it was a pretty darn good quarter for Xbox. That's not all that surprising considering the big title launches they had. It's the holiday shopping season and everybody loves a console under the tree. Now, we did get some additional information about actual usage of the consoles, which this isn't something Microsoft always shares. They have previously told us that Game Pass has 25 million subscribers. Nothing new there, but they did tell us, and these are new numbers, that more than 20 million people have played Halo Infinite, by far making it the biggest Halo launch in history. Now, that should not surprise people in the slightest. First of all, there's two components to this. There is the campaign and multiplayer. Microsoft did not break out campaign or multiplayer. Surprise, surprise, the company that doesn't like to break out information didn't go ahead and break out information this time either. But 20 million comes from the multiplayer, which is free, by the way, and effectively means that 5 million Game Pass subscribers, more than likely, somewhere around there, did not play Halo Infinite, which is somewhat surprising, maybe, I don't know. But either way, 20 million people playing it across all platforms is pretty good. So maybe there's actually more than 5 million subscribers. We don't quite know. Microsoft didn't give us those fine details. Also, they said 18 million people have played Forza. Remember how Microsoft came out and said, hey, Forza is just doing phenomenal. It got great reviews across the board. And of course, it was included in Game Pass. There was no true free multiplayer version of it, if you will, but it looks like everything was going really well. And then that momentum just carried right on into Halo Infinite, which means Microsoft had an exceptionally strong quarter. And then they said, screw it, we're buying Activision because if we can grow these numbers, why wouldn't it? They probably didn't say that. I might be extrapolating that out a little bit. But speaking of Activision, we did get some more information about what is going to be happening with Call of Duty. Now, this comes from Bloomberg, and they are saying that Call of Duty 2022, which is this year's version, also Call of Duty 2023, which is next year's version, and also, interestingly enough, Warzone 2, which is going to be a 2023 title, all will be available on PlayStation, which effectively means that as of right now, the next 2 iterations or 2 years are going to be on Call of Duty games are going to be on PlayStation. Now, after that, things might change. I'm guessing that is coming from contractual obligations. No surprise there. I mean, that's exactly what we would expect. Microsoft would honor those contracts much like they have done with previous acquisitions. And so it looks like PlayStation will be getting those titles for a bit. But that doesn't mean things like DLC or additional map packs or other things might not be included on PlayStation. We don't quite know the full narrative yet, but we do know for sure those games are coming. And I still would be absolutely shocked if the full titles did not land on PlayStation in some capacity after that expires, unless Microsoft decides to get real aggressive and tries to push Sony out of the market, which, I mean, they could do, but I don't think that they're going to go, I don't realistically think they're going to pull it all the way from PlayStation. That would be kind of insane. And that's all assuming that Microsoft can actually get this acquisition through. So to recap that up there, a good quarter for Microsoft, $411 million, or an 8% increase year over year. Tons of people playing Infinite, tons of people playing Forza, meaning these titles are probably being considered a success by Microsoft. And this is critical because, again, it shows that they can launch these titles and the gamers actually want to play them. And if they can get this acquisition through of Activision, Microsoft is going to be on a good, strong trajectory for their Game Pass growth. Now, there's some more data that we don't have yet, and I'm still trying to work some back of the napkin math about what the cost to grow from roughly 18 million to 25 million actually cost Microsoft. We know that Bethesda was in there. We know that they launched some games. It'd be interesting to understand because the way this works, and I guarantee this number exists inside of Microsoft, especially with this data that we just got from Q4, is that Microsoft knows how much money it costs to gain one subscriber of Game Pass. Now, it's not a perfect science, but in marketing, you would call it a user acquisition cost, a UAC. Microsoft knows how much money they have to throw at Game Pass to get it to grow by a certain number. And so I'm thinking that they looked at the $70 billion that they would spend on Activision and what that would actually get them in subscriber growth. And they probably looked at the acquisition and said, hey, that's actually a pretty favorable metric in our way. And so that is why they actually are going after Activision, not to mention they get a ton of good quality IP and they can do a whole bunch with it. But I know, and I would love to try to work backwards and figure out what that number is. It'd be really hard to do from the outside because there's hidden costs that we don't quite see on this side. But there is a number that says to get one Game Pass subscriber, you need to spend X amount of dollars. And we'll see how many Game Pass subscribers Microsoft can get for about 70-ish billion dollars. So a very good quarter for Microsoft overall. Now, what we don't know, and Microsoft didn't dive into this too much. They did talk about how Series S production, I believe, has been increased. They didn't talk too much about chip shortages yet, and when they think that truly is going to alleviate. Actually, starting today, Microsoft was sending out some emails direct to Xbox users in their email to how to buy a Series X. The Series S, as it stands right now, and at least all the information I've gotten and seen firsthand, it looks like the Series S constraint, well, it's not perfect and you're not going to find it at every store. It's much easier to get your hands on one. The one that is still hard to get is the world's most powerful gaming console, which is the Series X. And that is the one that most gamers want, and yet it is still hard to find. And so Microsoft clearly has the Series S coming out, and they're still working on the X. Anyways, what's ahead for Microsoft? Well, everybody's going to keeping all eyes on that acquisition. I got a lot of questions if Microsoft is going to be buying WB Games now. I do not think that's happening at all. Microsoft has to get through these regulatory hurdles, and buying another gaming company would just muddle up that conversation, and I don't think that's going to be happening. Anyways, as we learn more and as we dive into the details, make sure to keep it subscribed here because the only BS on this channel is me.